If you're watching this right now, you are ready to do whatever it is that you've been called to do. How do I know that? I don't. But hear me out. In my 7 years of coaching, I've never once had a client who came to me wanting to do something with their business, with their career, with their personal brand, who wasn't ready to do the thing. But you know what did happen is that a lot of them regretted waiting so long to come to me because for the last year, 2 years, sometimes even 3 years, they had been getting that niggle that they wanted to do this thing and they kept ignoring it because they thought they weren't ready. So I knew I had to create this video because the fact that you clicked on it tells me that you're at a very critical time in your journey where you are potentially being pulled between taking action, taking a leap of faith, and listening to potentially some lie in your mind that's telling you you're not ready. And I have got a fun little acronym that I'm going to teach to you today, B.O.G, that is going to help you determine whether the thing standing in your way is legitimate or not. Because guess what? One of those three letters is a category of fake reasons to not take action. The other two are legitimate, but don't mean that you shouldn't be taking action. They mean that you need to get much clearer and much more specific on the kind of action you're taking so you can start making real progress. So with no further ado, let's just dive in. But we're actually going to work backwards. The first thing we need to talk about is something that gets a lot of people stuck and potentially going down some unnecessary rabbit holes. So even though this is a legitimate thing that stops people from getting moving, it can be the thing that motivates them to take the wrong action that actually holds them back from making progress. So the last letter of B.O.G is G. This stands for gaps. Gaps between where you are and who you are and the thing that you're trying to achieve. The first gap is a knowledge gap. That's just not knowing enough about what you need to know in order to take action. To be honest, I feel like in this day and age, it's probably the least likely gap for us to have because we are so spoiled for knowledge living in an information age. That said, a lot of the information we have access to is very regurgitated and maybe out of date, maybe backwards, maybe broken or incomplete. So just because you're able to easily get supposed perfect answers from Google, from ChatGPT, don't always just assume that it is the complete story. The next kind of gap is related to that, but it has a lot more weight, and that is a skills gap. So skills are where we can actually put that knowledge to good use. And skills gaps often give us a lot of self-doubt. They're the thing that stop us from taking action because we feel really inadequate, really unsure of ourselves. The problem that can happen here is when we are feeling the stretch of that skills gap, we often sign up for courses and programs that are supposed to help with this, but what they give us instead of skills is knowledge. Because the thing is, skills can't be gained by someone just telling you what to do. Skills come from, yes, getting some information, but then putting that into practice and then getting feedback so that you can improve and get better. So to truly improve your skills, you need to be taking action. Know that if you're sitting and watching a course that doesn't get you to apply what you're doing or to get confident at trial and error and understand why you're doing what you're doing and how to know if it's working and how to improve it, then you are at still a little bit of a skills standstill. The next kind of a gap is probably the one that's most overlooked, which is an environmental gap, but it could also feel like friction. So your environment can obviously be your physical environment, and that could look like the people in your environment being problematic. It could look like you not having the right setup for what you need to do. So do you have the right tools? Do you have the resources? Do you have the space to be able to do what it is that you need to do? But also, is what you're using set up in the right way to reduce friction? Because when we are starting something new, that is when we are at the highest point of friction. Like we are trying to overcome inertia. And while during normal circumstances, when we're confident, we know what we're doing, we're already in motion, we might have a little bit more capacity for friction. When you're just getting started, any little setback can have you completely back at square one again and wanting to give up. So it is really important to learn to pay attention to where that friction is coming up. Simple points of friction for me, just as some examples to get your your noggins going. Friction could look like the noise of outside, the road outside, because I am sitting on a really busy street and we do not have double glazed windows. And oh my goodness, it drives me crazy when I'm trying to record. And then the garbage truck pulls up outside. Another point of friction for me was when I was trying to set up my YouTube set from scratch every time I wanted to record. So requiring me to pull out lights, to set up the camera, to adjust things, to test things, have the camera not be able to connect to the computer while I'm working. So therefore I can't preview the screen. And therefore I would like sit down and start to edit my video and be like, oh my gosh, there was mascara on my face the whole time. Or like there was something in my teeth. Disastrous. And the big thing is I just never wanted to sit down and set it up in the first place. It just felt like too much work when there was already the resistance to recording, because I went through a multiple year period of not being consistent with creating content, and the resistance was real. And so to overcome that environmental gap, you know what I did? Well, you might be able to tell. I'm sitting exactly where I sit when I work, when I'm coaching a client. This is the exact backdrop that people see when they meet me on Zoom for one of our coaching sessions. I have the camera set up permanently in its correct spot. I have the light set up, ready to go. All I have to do is connect a couple of cables. I made sure that I was able to set this up so that I'm using OBS, like a recording software that my camera goes into, so that I get a full size preview of my face and I don't have to find out too late that there is something on my face. And ultimately, this has just been a process of trial and error. Every single time that I would find myself resisting recording, I'd go, why does this feel so difficult? Now, a lot of the time it was my mind, and we're going to get to the mind's role in all of this shortly, but there were so many things that I was able to do that started to make the process of recording, at least sitting down to record, just feel lighter and more enjoyable. And while it took a little bit of time and effort to get this set up, now I just sit down and I record, no big deal. Whereas before it was like, oh no, every condition needs to be perfect or I'm not going to record. Anyway, I think I've given you a couple of examples, so hopefully that's enough for the time being. The next gap we need to talk about is the motivation gap. And this is the most nuanced, because the thing is, your motivation is going to be directly impacted by those other gaps. So as long as you are struggling in the skills department, or if you don't really know what you're doing, you don't have any sort of clarity on your next steps, if there is friction with your environment, it's all going to affect your motivation. So this is one that has overlap. But then the other kind of motivation is the motivation that I honestly think is the main reason I work with clients. And that is because there is so much self-doubt. There is so much overwhelm. There is layers and layers of, we call them visibility blocks, like different fears that will come up whenever we start imagining ourselves starting to take these steps and stepping into this much like bigger, more impactful version of our lives. So motivation blocks often require the most work. Like we can solve a lot of them through knowledge, skills, and environment, but then the remaining ones, that can take time. Some of them just require a quick reframe. I've had clients have complete turnarounds on sessions when I'm working with them. And then the other ones, the ones that I personally have had come up in recent weeks because I'm re-emerging from being in my own sort of creative void and being very hidden for the last few years. Oh my goodness, these fears and wounds around rejection and belonging and self-worth and like who's going to want to listen to you, and like if you don't get to the point quick enough, people are going to get bored. All of this kind of stuff starts coming up because our egos, they want to keep us small. They want to keep us exactly where we were. It's like they want to keep us where they can see us. The ego doesn't want you stepping into the unknown because it seems very dangerous. There are genuine wounds. There's genuine fears that have come from all of the hurt, all of the things that we learned were wrong about us in childhood, like all of that can build up. And then there is all this extra stuff that's just amplified because of your fear-based mind. So motivation is a huge gap to have. And I would say that the main purpose of my coaching, like I don't think I would have a job if there was no such thing as motivation gaps, because this is where most of the work happens. So if you haven't already, you probably want to grab a notepad and pen, and you could even pause the video in this moment and just do a quick brain dump of what you think your current gaps are in terms of this specific thing that you're trying to achieve. Is it that you want to go full-time in your business? Are you launching something new? Is it a new offering? Do you want to finally get yourself out there on Instagram or LinkedIn or maybe even YouTube? Like what is the thing? And what are all the things in your head that come up when you think about doing that thing? Like oh, but what about this and what about that? And also, when you imagine yourself, do a little visualization exercise. And when you think about the steps that you would potentially have to take, if you know what they are, because obviously there's a big gap there if you're not sure what the steps are, but if you can imagine it and then feel it in your body and like what comes up there, like, can you feel somatically the resistance in your body? Where is it coming from? Do you notice any sensations? Like, where do you go, and what do you like, what is then the temptation for you to do something next? Like, often we also have patterns where the second we start to feel a little bit uncomfortable, it's like, you know what, I'm just going to actually go scroll Instagram, or I'm just going to go read a book, or I'm just going to whatever that thing is. Start to take a little inventory of all of these things that are going on in your head and your body, and just trust that, like, once you know what they are, you can start tackling them so they don't have to hold you back forever. But we need to move on. O is for obstacles, like the real obstacles to starting, because there are definitely fake ones, the ones that your mind is going to make up, where gaps are often very related more to what you personally are needing to become or to learn or expand into. Real obstacles tend to be things in the outside world and just facts that may just need to change. For instance, an obstacle could be you don't actually have any time yet. Like, you have a completely full calendar and you don't see how you would carve out time to do a few hours a week working towards this new goal. Another obstacle could be that, oh no, I'm in the wrong location to be able to do this thing, or I actually don't have one of the prerequisites to even be considered for this job. It's like often that obstacle feels very tangible and like something that will require a bit of time and effort for you to tackle. So, like, do you need to start canceling some other things, cutting back on your commitments so that you can carve out space? If an obstacle is your actual health and well being, your energy levels right now, that could be something else that needs tackling. I'm like, okay, this is an obstacle. I'm not going to be able to throw myself full time into this, but maybe I can find something that is possible for me to do now within those creative confines of my current energy levels, or where my health is at. I want you to see obstacles as something that's actually like standing in your way that feels like a bit of a wall, whereas gaps is like, oh no, like I have no way of actually getting from here to here because I don't have this thing that I need right now. Now we need to talk about the fake obstacles, okay? The ones that your mind makes up. And this brings us to the final letter in our acronym, which is B. B is for blocks, and blocks are actually internal, even though your mind will project them into the outside world and make you think that they are real things that are outside of you that need to be tackled. Like, your mind will make them look like obstacles or gaps, but they're not. There are so many different blocks, and again, these can be related to those motivation gaps that I was talking about. So we might just have a mental block about being on camera. Like, so having a block about being on camera or being more visible will then create a gap in our motivation. Suddenly we're like, oh, no, I don't want to do that. We could also have money blocks, abundance blocks, where it's like, I don't know if I could actually handle earning that much money right now, because again, you might consciously be like, of course I can handle more money. But then subconsciously, there are all these other fears like, okay, if I have more money, what does that mean? People are going to see me differently. I'll stop being relatable to people. I will be judged by my family. People are going to expect handouts. Like, there could be all these subconscious blocks that then have your mind making up other stories about why you shouldn't step into this new era of your life. So it's important to understand that the block usually has a root in something that is true, something that needs being dealt with, but it rarely manifests in the same way. So even if you've got a money block, that's not going to come out as you going, oh, I can't put myself out there because I don't think I can make more money. It's going to come out as another story. Like, oh no, I just don't have time for this. Or, ew, it's gross being self-promotional. Or, oh yeah, but Instagram is dying. Or like, insert any number of stories there. And so this is where blocks can be one of the most challenging things to deal with, because we think we're dealing with one issue. Like let's say you're a client and you come to me and you're like, oh, I want to be more visible, but I hate LinkedIn. Instagram is cringe, and also blah, 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 like insert a whole bunch of other stuff there. Now, I could jump straight to saying, okay, well, but here's the thing. LinkedIn doesn't need to be cringe. It can be like this, and Instagram isn't actually dying, and da-da-da-da-da. And we can get really focused on this surface level stuff, which sometimes can help a little bit. But what I found with clients is that often when they make out like it's one thing, week upon week upon week will pass and they still won't be taking action, even though consciously in a session, they're like, oh, yeah, that makes so much sense. Okay, this is the plan. Yep, this is the homework, da 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 da. I actually had a client once who came to me because they believed that they wanted to launch their own coaching business and become prolific on LinkedIn. And so signed up for my like personal brand coaching package. And they spent probably 10 months working with me, where each week we would talk about the different things that were coming up and they'd be like, yep, I'm going to go do this thing. And then they wouldn't do the thing. And I got to this point where I was like, okay, we need to get to the root of this because like our time is nearly up. And I know you keep saying you want this, but I know you don't because your body is saying otherwise. So like, let's get to the root of this. Long story short, he ended up realizing that he didn't want to launch a coaching business at all. What he actually wanted to do was stop coaching people. He wanted to be the leader that other people look up to, which is why he'd been avoiding all of these things all along. Because it was like so misaligned, but he was very fixed. Like, this is what our minds can do. We get very fixed on a story and what we think we need and what we want and what's really getting in our way. And we can be missing the most obvious thing it's not obvious. My point here is that we can have a block that could take so many different forms. It could be that you're not actually clear on the thing that you want, that you're aiming for the wrong thing, that you're actually just terrified about what the consequences are of whatever you're going to be doing next. And then it can show up as a story, as something that sends you down a different rabbit hole, that sends you in the wrong direction and really just sets back your progress, even though you think it is progress. And there are so many ways that this can happen, but there are three really big ones that I want to throw at you because I have just seen these come up over and over again. The first one, and I feel like I just attract so many people into my world who do this, and maybe it's because, it's probably because it's also me. The first story is I need to go learn more first. Like, as in, I think I need to go back to school. I think I need another coaching certification. I think I have to get more training in this particular thing. Whatever that thing may be, you feel like you are not ready because you are actually not equipped. And while that can be the truth for some people, I'm yet to meet someone who is actually in that category. Everyone else is so experienced, so skilled, so knowledgeable, usually has formal qualifications, and if not formal, then like years of experience of whatever they've been working in thus far. And one of the reasons they think they need to learn more is because they're so masterful at what they do. You know what they say is like, the more we know, the more we realize we don't know. They've just set the bar so high for themselves because they keep uncovering more things that there are to learn, and they're scared of being uncomfortable. It's a lot safer and easier for most of us to sit and read more books, take more courses, be in some structured learning environment. It keeps us very sheltered, in the known. And putting yourself out there and having to start to take action when you don't really know where you're going or what you're doing, that is really uncomfortable. So we can go, you know what? I need this certification because that's going to make all the difference. Or I need to take this particular course that's going to teach me how to create the perfect funnel or something. That's one of my own stories. And then I will be equipped to succeed in whatever it is I'm going to succeed at. And it is just like I said, almost never true. If you're watching this right now and this is resonating, then I'm speaking to you directly, okay? The experience that you already have right now, your knowledge, your story, your background, the hard skills, the soft skills, your natural gifts and talents. There is so much that you could be offering the world right now in whatever form you're feeling called to offer it in. And taking the next step is going to be scary and uncomfortable. And that's okay, because that is what is required for growth. You could go sign up for another course, sure. But then what about afterwards? When you then circle back, you're going to be feeling exactly as you do right now because that course won't make a difference. It'll just have delayed the inevitable. You'll be feeling more frustrated that you haven't taken action, more scared because you've got more time for those stories to keep looping and become stronger. I say rip off the Band-Aid. Get yourself out there now. Now, I'm not saying that you are like, there are things that might need to be tackled before you do. I'm not saying just throw spaghetti at the wall, but also you are going to have to take a step into the dark because that is the process. That is the journey of life, of creation. Another really big one that might not seem like a big deal to you, but for the people who know, like, you know, and I'm someone who's known this. There's another story that says like, I think I need to just be more realistic. I think I need to shrink the vision or the goals a bit more. And that could seem like, oh, yeah, but as long as I'm aiming for something, that's fine, right? Yeah, yes and no. When we shrink the vision, we are no longer stretching ourselves into this new version of who we're supposed to be. We show up very differently. If we're aiming to, let's say you're aiming to make $30,000 a year in your business, you're going to show up completely differently for your business than if you are aiming to make $300,000 a year in your business. Or, like, let's not even talk about $3 million a year in your business. Three versions of you are required for those three different levels. So if you shrink that vision, that goal, you are already sort of denying this call to step into a much bigger version of yourself. And we need to get real about what is really going on here. Now, I think this is something that's more likely to happen in your 30s and beyond. There's something about the 20s when we seem to be able to allow ourselves to aim really big, to shoot for the stars and all of that. And then what happens is, obviously, as we get older, we try things and then they don't work. We start to chalk up this list of what we call failures, heartbreaks, disappointments, things not going the way they were supposed to, never matching up to the expectations we have in our head. And you start to go, oh, I don't know if I can deal with another one of these disappointments. Also, I'm getting too old for this. Like, I should have my ish together by now. So I can't have another failure on my track record. Like, this next thing needs to work. So therefore, how can I guarantee that this works? Oh, you know what? I'm going to shrink. I'm going to shrink the vision. I'm going to get really realistic, really practical. Like, what's something that I know I can achieve in my sleep? I'll aim for that. I know for me, I avoided vision work for years. For a while there, I used to be someone who had a huge vision, so much ambition, just naturally. And I used to always aim, like, if I was going to do something, I'm like, I want to be the best. And then something happened. One day I realized, oh, wow, every time I said, oh, it's probably time for me to reassess my vision, to sit down and work on it for months on end, every time I would go to sit down and write the vision, something would happen and would pull me in another direction, and I would just never do it. It was this completely like subconscious avoidant tactic. I never wrote it down. Eventually I did, don't worry, got back on track. But it took me quite a while before I noticed that behavior. I was like, oh my goodness, why can't I vision anymore? And it wasn't that I didn't have vision. It was that I couldn't allow myself to want something so badly and then risk not being able to get it. Like that. Oh, it's really hard. It's really hard to be a human. Can we all agree? Anyways, this whole I need to be more realistic thing, I know you think it's going to, like, it'll keep you safe, sure, but it'll also keep you stuck. It's going to keep you who you are right now. And you wouldn't be watching this video if you didn't want to evolve and become the next version of yourself. So here's the thing, you are going to have to decide, is it worth heartbreak, disappointment, failure, looking silly? Is it worth that for me to potentially actually live the life that I want to live? Is it worth the risk? And if you can get to this place where, and this is the thing, like sometimes the vision needs to be so big that it is worth it. And if we're aiming too small, it's like, oh, no, it's never small enough for it to like be worth the risk. But can you connect to something that you want so badly, that you've been dreaming about, maybe your whole life? Is it worth it to try? To know that it's never failure, because you will pick yourself up. You will gather all of the learnings from that attempt and you will move on and be further ahead than you were. Also, I'm not saying that then this next time you do it, you're not going to absolutely knock it out of the park. But like the point is, if you stay in the game, you're actually going to keep getting closer to that thing that you want. Do you really want to give up now? It's your call. If you do, then I guess stop the video. But if you do, let's talk about the final thing. I'm saying final, but I'm saying of the big three, because there are so many other stories that we come up with. But the other huge one is I need to have all the answers and I need all the clarity and I need this exact plan before I'm ready to start. Now, how long is a piece of string? I know that doesn't really make sense in this context, but I think you get what I'm saying. There will never be enough answers, enough clarity, enough of a plan in order for you to actually truly feel good about moving forward, because this is fear speaking. Our fear-based minds want certainty, they want guarantees. Like the last thing they want to do is take a risk. and step into the unknown. But guess what? We're always stepping into the unknown. We can never guarantee anything. In fact, the more rigid we get about our plans, the more likely it is to not go the way that you're planning. One of the safest things that I have found is to hold my plans so loosely and be receptive to the information that's coming in so that I can keep making micro adjustments. Whereas when we're like, no, it has to happen this way, that's when we fail. That's because we're not adaptable. So, this whole I need all the answers and I need an exact plan. And when I say plan, I mean people who are like, I need to know how exactly I'm going to get from here to there. And I need to know like the 78 steps that are going to be required. Now, I can always give my clients like the big picture of like, well, here are the big milestones that we'd probably be aiming for. Like, we can chunk it down, but all we can ever truly, truly know is the next step. That's the only thing we can have absolute certainty about. And then it requires commitment to that step. And then reassessing once you've taken it and going, okay, what is the next step that I'm going to take based on what I know now? Because the process actually changes you. And I like to say, creation leads to clarity and action leads to answers. There are so many unknowns and so many variables that it is actually impossible for you to have this perfect plan that gets you from where you were to where you want to go. Like, it just is, there are too many variables at play. But if every single time we take a step, we then get the lay of the land, we're like, okay, here's how I'm feeling, here's what I know, here's where my skills are at, how it's going. Cool, let's now make this next step. And that is actually the way you can be the most strategic. Because think about it, if you're trying to make a plan today based on all this stuff that you don't know, is it actually strategic to commit to all these steps in advance when there's question marks about every single one? Wouldn't it be more strategic for you to just take a step and then make the decision based on what you know then? I don't know. You tell me. But that is the third of the big three: lies, stories, excuses that your mind is going to be making up in order to stop you from taking action. So we've got B.O.G, blocks, obstacles, and gaps. And remember, what's the one that's fake? Blocks. They're the things that we need to really figure out. We need to get below the surface. Ignore the story. Hopefully you'll be able to recognize the story as just a story. Then we're going to drill deeper and go, what am I actually afraid of? And often it's uncertainty. Often it's the fear of failure. Often it's a fear of the consequences of success. But then it can also be so much more nuanced than that too. It can be fear of rejection. It can be this sense of inadequacy and like, I'm never going to be able to do it. Or like, what are people going to think if I start to do this? Like, there's just so much to it. But when we know the difference between these blocks, the obstacles and the gaps, that's when we can start to formulate an action plan. That's when you can go, right, how am I going to fill each of these gaps? Cool, how am I going to remove these obstacles? And whoa, okay, I need to start to work on some of these blocks, knowing that sometimes we just need to acknowledge that we have a block and we take the action anyway. But also if it's something that's really sensitive, it's something that's like activating your nervous system and could put you into a state of feeling really unsafe to take action, that's when other kinds of support are really helpful. That's where I can come in, but also there are so many other options out there. So this is not me selling myself to you. It's just me saying that there is a time and a place. There are some times where I've been like, oh, I wish I had a me right now so that I could have some perspective on what is a story that I'm making up in my mind and where am I genuinely needing some help, because it's intense. It's really intense. And also it's really exciting. If you're watching this still, I'm excited for you, genuinely, because you are being called to something bigger, something greater, something bolder. And because you have that call, that's how I know you are actually ready, at least ready to take the next step. Not saying you have to be at the top of Mount Everest tomorrow. I'm saying you're ready to take some action. So that's the real question now, is based on what I've talked about today. What action could you take? What is one step that you could take that gets you a little bit closer? And then once you've taken it, you can reassess what's the next thing. I really hope this was helpful. If you want extra support, if you are feeling like, oh my gosh, I wouldn't know where to start, I've got blocks and whatever coming out the wazoo, like please help me, give me some perspective. That's what coaching is for, but also my Mythic Journey offering is designed for this. It's designed to help you really connect to what it is you're actually being called towards, like on a deeper level, like who are you wanting to become? And then it looks at your patterns, your behaviors, your blocks, your fears that could be standing in the way, and how to take practical steps to step out of that shadow and into your strengths. and your gifts and your light and your purpose. So if you want to check that out, I'll include a link below. But otherwise, just please take one step today. And I am cheering you on, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.